Welcome. We're here today to talk about some advanced exporting functions from Control Center. So the first thing we really need to do is take a look up in the Tools and Options section up here at our exporting settings. So if you look on the tree on the left-hand side, you get Export right there, and you can see we have a couple of choices. The first one is Snapshot, which we can take as just a JPEG or an image of what's displaying on the screen. Notice if we're using an on-screen display and we want that to be on the export, we simply check this box. But you could actually choose a new location using the ellipses button here to the right-hand side. Possibly I could click on my desktop and create a new folder if that's what I wanted to do, but we'll just go ahead and cancel this out right here and leave it at C exports. You can see also below here we have a time format basically for the snapshot itself, which are listed right down here. And if for whatever reason you wanted to change it to a 24-hour time period, you could simply do so right here. Now, again, exports for snapshots are pretty easy. What we really want to talk about and focus on here is the clip snapshot, or excuse me, the clip exports. And as you can see up at the top right here, we also have the default location of C exports. Now, one of the things to keep in mind here about these advanced settings right here, they're all controlled by user rights and privileges in the user accounts in Admin Center. So you want to make sure that if you do want to control these, you need to come up and prevent people from being able to even get into tools and options. So you got to, let's look here. We have the same sort of ellipses button. We could choose a different location. I like this checkbox right here. It says create new folder for each export. So if I export the first thing, it'll put it in the exports 1 folder on that drive right there, or on that folder. Next one is exports 2, exports 3. It keeps stuff in line. If we look down here in the middle, these are the different type of codecs or the different styles that we can basically use to export. And the DVT format one is the only one we need to keep in mind with the include player and create auto run file up at the top. If the person you're sending it to does not have Control Center, well, our proprietary files do not play in anything else except Control Center or our proprietary player called Quick Control Center. So you could include those plus the auto run file if that's what you want to do, and they don't have access to Control Center. Now, the second thing right here in the middle is max file size. This is simply a limiter of the file size itself, not the total size of the file that you can export. For instance, if you have a 1.2 megabyte file or gigabyte file, excuse me, it will just chop it up into chunks no larger than this arbitrary number that you've chosen, 500, 500, and 200 megabytes. It would chop that 1.2 gigabyte file up into. It's pretty easy to understand, and you can generally use this as a function for the type of media that you're putting these exports on. It'll limit it to the size of the media. Now, secondarily, we have the different types of codecs we can use right here. We recommend the DVT format. It's watermarked and can be validated, but we do have another choice, and that was AVI, and that was our only choice before. But you'll note over here on the right hand side, AVIs are strictly adherent to the codecs that you're using. So the codec needs to be on the machine that it's encoding, this one, and in order to play it, you also have to have a Windows Media Player, etc., that has this same codec on it to be able to decode it, and that sometimes is where we run into problems. So our customers ask us, they said, we need another format. Let's try to find something without the limitations of AVI that's not DVT, that everybody can view, and that's why we added MP4. It's very universal, can be played on any media player, and does not require any codecs. So next is the time segment. This is a sort of fail-safe, and this is only for exporting from a query result, which we'll see here in just a bit. This is to save you, because a query result can actually be up to whatever the parameters are you're searching for. If I say look for this camera over a week, it may give you one result if the camera has been on the entire time with no interruptions. Now that is a huge file that Control Center is generally not designed to be able to do. So this limiter right here, the time segment, is your savior. It's your fail-safe. It's not going to let you hurt yourself. Now down at the bottom right here we have the advanced mode, and this allows users again to be able to change some of the settings. If you don't want that and you want to be able to control what they do, first you have to control their user rights and privileges in Admin Center, and then you not let them into tools and options, and then you need to come here to the options that they are not able to get into, and simply uncheck the advanced mode button. And then once they go to export, you'll see here in just a second when I go to do it, there are no options. Export and go are pretty much the two choices that they have, and we're going to see that here once I come out of tools and options. Let's put it back to the DVT format, and we will exit tools and options and go ahead and take a look at a very quick export, so we can see what we're talking about with no advanced mode options, and blocked from being able to get into tools and options right here. The users are effectively locked down to whatever it is that you want to control them to be able to do. So now let's come over here and we'll go ahead and do a little quick query on the left-hand side. Over the last 24 hours, we're just going to hit go. And you can see I have a number of results. Now, right here, this is what I was talking about. If the system had been up and running, which mine has not, over that 24-hour period of time, I could have one result. Could be 24 hours long. As you can see, that first one's about an hour and a half long, hour and 40 minutes or so, which could be a little bit sizable as well. You never know, especially if you're going to be exporting and doing something like this. Anything really large, you want to use our mass export function in Admin Center. But Control Center right here, we can see the different file. There it is right there. Here is the option, and this is what we talked about, that fail-safe back in Tools and Options. If somebody were to take a query for a week, for instance, and go ahead and try to query and export an entire week of video, that could be problematic, and that's what that fail-safe back in Tools and Options is set to save you from. So let's go back to our timeline now so we can take a look at one way to export. If I click on Instant Replay, it takes me right to my timeline. I have my settings set to 10 seconds behind. So let's just go ahead and slide this out, and we'll pause it right here. And you can see the controls right here. If I want to use my timeline basically to find the beginning, just like we would do in any export. And once I've found the beginning of the event or whatever it is that's occurring on my video, I can either just drag with my left mouse button, as you just saw right there, and then export, or let's get rid of this so I can show you a little bit more specific way to do it. Utilize these two buttons that are right above the timeline right here. You can see they're bracket looking, so let's go ahead and find a spot. And you can see these are the buttons I'm referring to right here. You have Mark In, and you simply find the beginning, click on Mark In, you see the indicator timeline, and then you move your timeline, red line, actually to the end of the event itself, and then you simply click on the Mark Out, which gives you the nice calipers now. And then if I right click, I can export. Now you'll notice that's the only choice. I hit export, boom, it's gone. It has exported now. And if I were to click on the description field right here for the export, it'll actually take me right to that file. But you'll notice I had no options, I had no choices, because we took away the advanced option, which is what I mentioned before. So now let's go ahead and take a look back into Tools and Options. And we'll go right back down to our export function. And on our clip, we're just going to go down now and check that advanced mode so you can see the options now. So by default, keep in mind that is on, and people have rights and access to it if you give that to them. So now if I come back to my timeline by clicking on Instant Replay, this brings us back down to our timeline. I'm going to go ahead and pause it, and we're just going to do a nice quick drag with our left mouse button and export the little spot here. And now you'll notice with the advanced button on, we now have a series of options over on the right hand side, including where it goes to, the name of the file itself, creating a new folder, and all of this is the primary button. If you allow access to advanced settings, you can see this is basically the same thing as being into Tools and Options. So if you block them from Tools and Options but leave them with the advanced option, that's not really cutting it. You need to do both. Now, as you can see here, everything can be changed. It just looks a little bit different than what we had seen before.